Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Richards. As Brett mentioned, a member of the BAA Communications Committee. I'm also the segment coordinator for START in Hopkinton. I have a retinue of volunteers there. I'm not going to say the number because I actually have a few more than I'm supposed to, but I'm just curious, before I start with comm standards, how many START volunteers do we have in the group? Could you raise your hand? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, good. Now I know that I can do, my regular talk for START this morning. All right, on to comm standards. The communication standards have quite a history with us in the Communications Committee. It was really the first thing that we tackled, pretty much, other than the decisions and directions policy. We were attempting to, as I like to say, raise the bar a little bit on our performance in communications. That's what we're here for, is communications, and that's our focus. Before I get into the standards, though, I'd like to share with you, actually it's an afterword in our START plan that I think applies to everyone, and I was really impressed with Dr. Moore's presentation. I don't know if all of you heard that. It was the first talk that was given this morning with the gentleman with the apple. It really impressed me. And this is sort of along those lines, and I just think it's important to back up what Chris has said and others in the committee think of our amateur radio teams here at the Marathon. So I wrote this: depending on who you ask, the Boston Marathon carries with it a unique and personal meaning. It may be associated with remarkable athletic achievement, the challenge of personal commitment, overcoming the odds stacked against you, expression of community, support of cherished loved ones or causes, or the recovery from tragedy to triumph as one. Our valued and talented amateur radio communications volunteers may relate to some, if not all, of these meanings. But there's one fact never in dispute. On this single day, the most complex public service event in New England is executed successfully, thanks in part to your professionalism, your pride, and your generosity that you bring every year to this event. This is a technically complex event. The communications environment is very widespread, and our teams need to be unified and disciplined to work with all of the other communicators and constituencies at this event. So, in light of the communication standards, I think we need to critically examine our individual and collective capabilities and up the performance to be the best that we can be at this event. And now on to the comm standards. This really is the basis of our work. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So at the top, we define them in both noun and adjective form, and there's been some brief discussion about this pluralization. Shouldn't it be communication standard or not? But at least this year we're going to keep it this way. So as a noun, it means a level of quality of attainment. I think that actually does apply to this. And as an adjective, it's a guideline or an accepted norm or usage that everyone agrees to. So when we have a standard in our communications, first of all, it means that we're complying with the norms, which is plain old English. A standard brings us efficiency because there's less guesswork about how we're going to do things. It brings us the interoperability because other services also have standards and work in English. It unifies our team. We're going to feel pretty proud when we hear the comms on our channels. They're going to be great. Our partners are going to accept us and have more confidence in us because we do a great job, and we can take a lot of pride in that. Some of the challenges really have to do with, the Citgo sign over there. It's hard to change. We like the Citgo sign, but it may go. In fact, I heard this morning it was actually a clover leaf back when it was first Citgo sign. Leave your QTH at home. I kind of like that one. We're not going to use any Q signals and any special codes. I know that it's hard to release these attachments, and nobody likes to change, but there's some things that we just have to just deal with. Okay, so let's go over the basics of the standards. The first thing that's absolutely critical is to maintain what I call a strict listening watch. Okay? If you're called, you got to answer. Well, if you're called, you got to hear to answer, right? So in the high noise, highly confusing environment sometimes of this marathon, particularly if we have warmer weather and you're at a medical tent and things are starting to get crazy and they're actually carrying people in, you're going to want to have that ear in, and you're going to make sure that you're listening all the time. So the strict listening watch is really critical. Plain English is important. Thinking, planning, and speaking in that order. I'm going to try to do that myself as I give this talk. We don't have to ask for permission anymore to do pretty much anything except ending our listening watch. Our calling sequence is going to be discussed. These are all the items that I'm going to go through here. The answering sequence, the tactical ID that we use, what's called the radio procedure model, the readback, priority of a message, the authority, the station ID, and the open mic process. So let's just get into these. Now, the listening watch. You got to maintain it at all times. This applies not only to our field units, but our net control operators, okay? We've structured that net control operation center such that that person on that radio channel does nothing but communicate on that channel. You know, maybe they write a few things down, but they have a procedures controller that backs them up, does all of the sneaker net, all of the phone calls, all of the other radio traffic on auxiliary channels. But basically, that NCO needs to answer when they're called, and you need to answer when you're called. Make sure that your equipment, make sure you optimize your chances for success in the field. So you have to have good equipment, be programmed and ready to go on event day, have spare batteries and a high gain antenna. Get that off your waist. It's one of the worst things is to have it down here like I do. You really want it up here. If you got a vest or some way of clipping it up here so the antenna's up in the air is great. If you're having trouble, find a sweet spot and stay there, or use an alternate channel. Clear your head. I mean, this is kind of, basic, but make sure that you maintain a clear head in sometimes the confusion and the craziness. I mentioned the earpiece. Focus, it's hard. 8, 7, 8, whatever it is, hours listening to a channel is hard. And if you're not sure, after 15 or 20 minutes, you don't really hear any traffic, and yet there's a lot of stuff happening around, get on and ask for a comm check. And we're going to do that. So how many folks have read the standards in the room so far? Okay. So let's see. I'm going to pick this gentleman right back here. Jeff? That's you. No, you right there. Okay. So W1ZAP, net comm check. Thank you, Ralph. You could yell. Okay, W1ZAP. We'll call you, let's see, Mike 9. Mike 09. Mike 09. Net comm check.
Net Mike 09. I read you loud and clear. How me?
Mike 09, loud and clear. Thank you. Break. And then we go on to the next one. Okay, so when we're doing these comm checks, for example, it's very snappy. I want to be very quick. Okay? Thank you, Ralph, for that. You're listening. You hear a call. The quality of your listening is critical. If you're not sure, never assume. Ask for a readback. And ask for phonetics if you're not sure. Okay? So the success metric for listening watch is answer on the very first call. Okay. Speaking English. It's the common language. That's what George Carlin said. And he said, sometimes I think all people who speak English should be in an asylum for the verbally insane. And he was great for the, it's a near miss. They talk about a near miss when you have an airplane crash. And two airplanes come together in the sky. They call it a near miss. He said, no, it's a near hit. Look, they nearly missed, but they didn't. So the language is sort of a little bit strange sometimes and ambiguous, but everybody gets it mostly. Okay, public safety speaks it. They don't use codes. There's, actually in my town, there's only one guy of our police department that says 10-4. Well, 10-4 is sort of gone, maybe, but they still use it. We adapt slightly for efficiency and clarity. So there's certain keywords and phrases and phonetics and the structure to our standards that help with efficiency and clarity. But basically, it's the King's English. The think, plan, and speak part of the standards. Pause. It's very useful in any setting, particularly this one. Just pause and think, what's next? Where do I run to? Plan. Okay. consider how the message might be received and interpreted. Okay? If you're going to say something, you're going to ask something on someone else's behalf, make sure that all the information is there. Anticipate the questions that you're probably going to get. You know, you don't want to do a long conversation, okay? So get it all out in one call. Structure for clarity, avoid ambiguous language, and be brief. Don't avoid the brevity, be brief. Okay. Then when you speak, you press the button, you pause, and you make your call. Okay. And in fact, I was told by one of the net controllers that there's some issues sometimes with linked machines, so when they hit transmit, it doesn't really transmit for a while. You know, it takes a few seconds, so they should know about that. But certainly on your end as well, be sure to press the button and pause. And I see Ralph is doing a selfie of himself over there by the wall. How'd it come out, Ralph? Okay. Speak slowly, clearly, and confidently. Don't be shy, okay? And use and request phonetics when you're not sure. All right. Permissions. Well, you know, back when I was in public school, we needed actually a piece of paper, a written paper, to go to the bathroom. And some of us may feel that we'll need permission for everything. And it used to be in our communication structure that you did. But I never really understood what purpose it served, other than maybe to make someone feel like they were in control. But the fact of the matter is that in the field, things happen very fast. And I've been out with, before we had our new structure, I've been out with walking medical teams, and we had runners that we wanted to bring to the attention of the medical tent, and we had to wait for permission. And by the time we got the permission, they were long gone, but they were distressed, and we felt that they should be checked, or our team felt that they should be checked. So we really want to get over this time bandwidth challenge. There's a lot of traffic sometimes on the nets. We need to keep things moving along. And so we have essentially two forms of operation on our communications net. One is called closed, and the other is called the hybrid net. So the closed net is the one that we're used to, the one that I'm talking about where you need permissions. It's the only one where permission is mandated, and that would be in any kind of a situation where we had some kind of a critical event that we really needed to maintain focus on that event. And it's another way of saying stand by unless urgent. Stand by unless urgent. And that's a closed net. But by default, all of them operate in the hybrid mode. And what that means is that Station A can call Station B if the channel is clear, the communications are done, and it's brief. So if I'm out in the walking medical team, I can say, Mike 09, walking team Mike 09 Alpha, request. And they'll answer me directly on the net channel. And then I can say, the team requests that you check runner bib number 235, wearing a blue shirt and no pants. Okay? And that'll get their attention, by the way, as well. So that's, instead of going through this whole net process, you call them direct, you get it done, you're off the air. And that then takes care of the bandwidth issue. So if we have a closed net, you know, it's really just more time to get messages through. Adds unnecessary steps, really, and establishes unnecessary arbitration. The advantages of the hybrid, again, is that we have a quick unit-to-unit coordination, and it's for those one-off issues that we can get over with quickly. And it definitely provides immediate channel priority per simple pre-established rules. Okay. And by the way, if there are questions, stop me, raise your hand, and we'll deal with those. Okay. The calling sequence. In my town in public safety, the way they do it is by giving their own ID and then calling, you know, the ID of the station they want to reach. So base to car 9. Well, we kind of know your base, you know, but that's the way they do it. The way we do it is the exact opposite. Okay, so if I'm a net controller, I'm going to call Mike 09 again. I'm going to say Mike 09, Mike 09, net on C1. And Mike 09 would answer, right? Okay. So it's, again, it's your destination tactical ID, your tactical ID, and then on the channel. And you can, on channel ID is optional. It depends on the controller as to what they're doing. But when you're calling a net controller, it might be a good idea to tell them what channel you're on, because they'd be monitoring more than one, okay? All right, so that's... Jim, your controllers may have more than one channel to monitor, is that correct?
Breaking my own rule. Each net control at CourseNet is on one channel, it's one repeater. Sometimes there's linked repeaters that are together, in the case of C1, but it's still one net control on one channel.
Okay, so would it help you if the field units said what channel they're on, or no? We're having a committee meeting here, by the way, while we're doing this.
I'm just going to go stand down here.
Okay. He wants to be on camera.
Hey, Mark.
Why don't you be on camera?
People should see who's talking, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, come on down. You're the next contestant. I'm perfectly fine with it. If that's what the net control is doing, I trust all the net controls that we have at CourseNet. So anybody that's used to saying on channel, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Good.
Yeah, I'm absolutely okay with it. Yep.
Okay. Not for course, right? You're not requesting or mandating that for course.
Yeah, I mean, if it's all good.
He's an easy guy to work with.
I am.
He's taking me to lunch later.
Mark's throwing me for a loop.
I'll just order whatever I want. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll talk about ID in a minute. Yep. Thank you about the call sign. And that's in the talk here. So at start, for those start volunteers, we actually want you to do that. We want you to call NET on Hotel 5 or whatever channel, because we monitor several. We don't have a big staff like this guy does, so that would be very helpful. Okay? The answering sequence. We really want to avoid a fatal error. And in fact, I say fatal, and I probably should have put it in caps, because in the medical communications context, this kind of error can be fatal. When you have multiple medical units in the field, they're talking to one facility trying to get instructions, and there's some confusion about maybe who's at the, connected here, who's talking. You could have the medical facility with thinking that they're talking to one unit, when in fact they're talking to another one with maybe a similar patient but should be handled differently. So you can have this thing where you've got the right message but the wrong recipient. This also applies in our communications as well. You might not think that they're that critical, but in a contingency they may very well be that critical. And so it's important to make sure that both sides of the communications channel understand who they're talking to. And so what we do is we avoid any misunderstanding when we answer by saying, Mike 09 answering. And NET will say, Mike 09 NET with their message. And Mike 09 will answer, Mike 09, we copy the message, W1XYZ. And we're done. So that field unit always identifies themselves with their tactical first, even when replying to the other station, so that the other station understands who they're talking to. In our technical environment, where we have analog repeaters and a lot of noise around us as well in the environment, it can be very, very challenging sometimes. So it's important to make sure that you identify yourself every time. Yes, sir.
Where I was not recognizing that I was being called, even though I was holding strict listening watch. And I would suggest that if a station is being called, a tactical ID is being used, and you're not getting a response, that you consider using the amateur radio call for that individual. I was a little confused. A non-standard, or at least not to the literature standard of tactical ID was used, and I was a little slow on picking up on that it was me that was being called. When I realized that it might be, I chimed in, but that caused a bit of a delay. So I wanted to mention that and ask what your thoughts are on that.
Thank you very much. I'm 100% with you, and there is a slide on tactical ID that I'm going to be getting to here, so we'll address it. And there it is. How do you like that, huh? You asked for it, and there it is. Okay. Your tactical ID, we call it a TID, is not your amateur radio call sign. It is married to the function and role that you have. If you're medical tent, Mike 09, then whoever's there with an amateur radio license and a radio in that role is Mike 09. So if somebody relieves you at Mike 09, they're now Mike 09. Okay, we always have a Mike 09 is what I'm trying to say. So you don't take that with you. There's some things that maybe, I would take with me, but, it wouldn't be my tactical ID, okay? Examples of a tactical ID. Ops manager, we have one of those up in Hopkinton. Athletes Village Coordinator, AVC. Net, your net controller, right? Procedures, your procedures controller in the Net Control Operations Center. Mike 07, I forgot my 0. And Hotel 09 Alpha, okay? Just some examples of these tacticals. So, you're called by your tactical ID, and if you're doing your listening watch and you hear Hotel 09 Net, then you answer. But if you're, let's say, distracted or something, and they try again and they don't get you, yeah, we'd use your call sign to get your attention, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Documentation's out there now says Mike 7, Apple Bravo Charlie, and the hotels are the left and the right. Are they still part of it?
Yes, and the documentation needs to be updated, so we're getting to that. Yeah. Yeah, this needs to be updated. Yeah, so, yeah. Okay. And you'll be assigned your tactical ID before you, get out there, obviously. Okay, the radio procedure model. Yes, sir, Brett. 5 minutes, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to skip through some of this stuff. All right, the radio procedure model, there's something called a full exchange and a rapid exchange. And the full exchange is like a phone call. So Mike 09 net on alpha, Mike 09 answering, and then your communications, and then you close it. That's the full exchange. The rapid exchange is for dispatch operations. So we have a transport system, right? Oh, Jack is standing next to me. He wants to do some. He wants to do some examples, right? You want to demonstrate a rapid exchange? Okay, here we go. Oh, look, you get your own mic. Thank you very much. Yep, go ahead.
Net Mike 18 Alpha checking in.
Mike 18 Alpha, net, loud and clear.
N1 ABC.
W1M. Being rapid exchange. So, so what we're doing is we're calling, making our request with the call. So it should be, here's my information, and then the answer is, I copy your information, goodbye. So there's an exchange consisting of 2 transmissions, right? 2 transmissions.
Actually 3. The third transmission is your FCC call sign to end the exchange and tell everybody on the net the channel is now clear.
Right. So I was thinking, of course I think, sort of on the fly sometimes, that maybe the first exchange, if you're sending out that request anyway in your first exchange in the rapid, you just put your call sign at the end of it.
Well, if you put your FCC call sign at the end of it, that says you've released the channel and you haven't given net a chance to acknowledge.
Thank you very much.
That's
okay.
why there's 3 transmissions.
So there's 3 transmissions. See, I stand corrected. Thank you very much. Okay, good. So that's the rapid exchange. And the full exchange, do you want to demo that?
Sure, let's demo that.
Okay, so...
And before calling, oops, excuse me.
Yeah,
let me
what do you
pull
need?
This other piece of paper back. Before calling, the full exchange is for critical information that has to be copied and read back exactly. So you don't transmit the real information until you've been answered, and when you're answered, that means the other station is ready to copy. So I got an ambulance request. I filled out one of these forms, so I'll have all the numbers right in front of me, and I can read them off when I get answered.
Yep,
And so we go.
yep, go ahead.
Net Mike 18 Alpha ambulance request.
Net answering Mike 18 Alpha ambulance request.
Mike 18 Alpha 1315. 2417. Male 44. Chest pain radiating to left arm.
Mike 18 Alpha 1315 hours 2417 male 44 chest pain radiating to left arm.
N1 ABC.
W1M. Okay, and that's according to the form. There's a process for that, and you guys we'll see that in the documentation. Thank you very much, Jack. Jack is a member of our documentation subcommittee and has done a lot of work on the standards. And thank you, Ralph. Okay, let's get through the rest of this. All right, the readback. Anyone familiar with that term in the room? What a readback is? No? A readback. You know what it is? Okay, good. So this is actually found in ATC communications. If you're giving a course change or an altitude change or something like that, you want to make sure they got it. In the AM environment, that's amplitude modulation, for those of you who don't know. With aircraft radios, the systems are sometimes even tougher than ours. So they do these readbacks to make sure that there's no question. So it can be in the originator request, where you need precision and so on, you do a readback. And I'm not going to give an example of that right now. Okay, priority. We have 3 levels of message priority, and this priority thing goes back to, I think, the National Traffic System and radiograms and so on. Normal is the unspoken default priority of our messaging. Urgent is a preamble keyword that indicates I've got medical traffic of some type or something is very, very time sensitive. The emergency is the OSHIT keyword, and that means that there's loss of life or imminent loss of life, maybe even my own. So that's to be used in, of course, the most critical of things, okay? The authority for a message, kind of important if we have to pass traffic, for example, for a course disruption, it really needs to come from proper authority, and that's why we have that talk earlier in the morning, so we understand where these messages come from. But there could be some cases where either a field operator or even a net controller might feel like they need to know where this is coming from. And so they may say, or you may say authority, please, meaning tell me who authorized this message or who did it. Per authority, official name and title is what you assert back, okay? The station ID, you have to do it every 10 minutes. The way that we do it in the comm standards, it indicates 1 minute, thank you. It indicates that we're at the end of the transmission. So when we give our call sign, we're done, and that's that. We want to avoid speeches, particularly for the net control operators in the room. Please, 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 I listened, I heard some good, some bad, and some ugly, I'm afraid, but really, this is W1M, you know, I'm the net controller on this channel and so on. This can go on, and it can be sometimes repeated every time, and it's absolutely unnecessary. Once an hour, we say a brief ID with W1M, we give our call sign, and we're done. We need to be quick, efficient, and get off the air. Okay. The open mic, it's everybody's responsibility. Please don't sit on them. And, you know, if there's an open mic in your channel, don't call on the channel with the open mic. They can't hear you, okay? So we might want to use the commercial system for that. You know, we might want to get a message out into our area that's covered, that's on that channel, saying, could you check one of your hams, see if they're down on the floor, ground, whatever, they've got an open mic, tell them to, you know, fix it. And if you're found to be the one, please tell the net controllers so they know who you are. Any other questions? We're at tabula rasa, and that's it.